Okay, in this we'll look at actually rendering our animation. So this is what we ended up with. I've just done a couple of tweaks on the camera path. Okay. Let's do a few more things with this. Let's just put a light in the scene. Let's create a light. I'm just going to create a couple of point lights down here. Just simple. Just go in here. Okay. What I might do is just duplicate this and bring one a bit further down here. In our scene, just got a shading, lighting, use all lights. Let's go lighting, shadows. So, in terms of rendering this, we can just go in and we can bring up our render view. We can just open the render view up. And we can just take a render of this. Just need to make sure that we're in the right viewport. Let me just come into camera 1. Just come into this. There's a couple of things we need to change here. We just need to render using Mental Ray. First of all, I'm going to click that one. We need to go in and let's go into our render settings. Let's come down here. So right now we've got the renderable camera. I'm just going to let's bring these down. I just want to make sure that I bring my other camera in as a renderable camera. Let's just find this. There. Okay, so we need to make that camera the renderable. So just go down here and let's have camera 1 as our renderable camera. Okay, I'm going to leave the alpha channel on, and let's just go back into our view. Let's take another render of that. Okay, this is what we're coming out with. So when we're doing this, we're just rendering out one single frame of the animation. Okay, we're not rendering out the entire thing. To render out the full thing, we just need to do a couple of things first. So I've already said I'm going to render using Mental Ray. Mental Ray just gives me a lot of access to a lot of different things, rather trying to add things into the Maya software. Maya hardware is mainly for sort of real-time sort of feedback on that. Viewport 2.0 works on this. So let's just go back to our Mental Ray. We could go in and add Final Gather onto this if we wanted to add a bit more illumination into this. We've got our point lights on there right now. So look at this. Okay, it's not too bad actually. In this scene it's very, very basic. I'm not going to worry about it. Let's just close this down a second. The Common tab. Oh, let's go into the Quality tab first actually. In a Mental Ray, this gives us this new mode which is new to Maya 2014, Unified Sampling. With this, it just gives us one quality value on there. So the render right now, and this is more obvious if you've got transparency in your scene and reflections in your scene, but we are getting a bit of jitter around the edge of the shadow. It's not as smooth as it could be. So we can take this quality sampling up, and a good rule of thumb is to start around 1, and let's just see if we need to go up any more. Okay, so we get a much smoother result from this straight away. So if you need to go up any further, you can do. Just be aware that going up taking this quality value up will also take your render time up. This is a very simple scene, so we're only going to 0.05 render time at the minute. Nothing to worry about. But if you are getting higher render times and just taking the quality up a little bit, and it isn't changing the quality much, but it's adding seconds onto your render time, it may not be worth doing that. Particularly for animations where you've got a lot of movement and a lot of other things happening in the scene. So let's now go to our common. I'm just going to go into this, and what this is doing straight away, this is giving our path, users, JOF, documents, Maya projects. This is giving us an IFF, so this is a file path it's taken us on. This is the IFF on here. So this is all set up for just rendering out a single frame, first of all. So what do we need to change in this? Down here we have this frame animation extension. You see we've got the name .extension, so in this case it would be .iff, and it's just a single frame. I just click on this and go into this next one down. What this is giving us is the name. We're getting the number of this, so the actual frame number, and then we're adding on the extension. So it could be something like what we got here, some title at the minute. Let's set a name for this. So file name prefix, let's call this something like ball animation, or let's call it ball bounce. Okay. So this would be ball bounce dot, if it was 0, 01, dot IFF. I'm actually going to change the IFF setting to something else. Usually I use, let's just come down here, Targa. So I'm just going to use a TGA file. Can actually see the file path up here as well, ballbounce.0001.tga, and this is just giving us our actual length of the animation, 0010 right now. I'm going to change that in a little bit. The frame padding is how many digits it uses. So it's giving us 4 by default, because sometimes you could have thousands of frames. That allows us to go up into that. Okay. If we're working with something like this, you could take this up and just have the frame padding as 2. I'm going to leave it at 4 for now. It's going to go down now into this frame range. So if we go into this, this is what Maya is actually animating. Okay. So within mine, I want to set this to my end frame, which is 48. So this is 2 seconds worth of animation. Obviously you could change this to whatever you want to, depending how long your animation is. Remember, you can change the length of either of these to extend the animation out, or you could do that in the animation settings. I'm just going to click off auto key for a second as well, make sure I'm not animating anything I shouldn't be. So let's go in and set this end frame to 48. If we just go down, renderable cameras, I want my renderable camera to be this camera 1. Okay. The presets, I'm going to go down and just set this to just a HD 720, so 720p. Okay. And we could go down here as well and just make sure that Maya's not using the default lighting system. Just click this off. Shouldn't cause too much problem. Yep, see, we've got the lighting pretty much the same. It's taking a bit longer now. We're rendering a bigger frame on this. And that's all done. Okay, so just going through those settings, mainly setting up this frame animation extension on there. That allows us to actually go in and set multiple frames out to render rather than just a single frame. Okay, so we're good to go. So the final thing that we just need to do is just go to our rendering menu. Just going to go to render, and we're going to go to batch render. Okay, I'm just going to click on this. It's just going to save the file out, and then what it's going to start doing down here, it's just saying render with mental ray, just getting ready to go, and then it's going to go through and render all of these frames. So it's starting to do this now. Alright. So all you can do now is just sit back and enjoy the render. Just as a quick note, I'm rendering this out as a TGA sequence, or as an image sequence. With Mental Ray, this is all you can do. It is actually better practice. So with the software, a Maya software render, you can set that to be, say, an AVI or a QuickTime. That's not very good practice for rendering, purely because if the computer crashes at any point during your render, if the render is going out as an AVI or a QuickTime, you lose all the information. So if you're rendering out 1,000 frames and at frame 999, that crashes, the computer crashes, something happens, the power goes down, you've lost everything. By rendering this out as an image sequence, what we're effectively doing is we're keeping every frame safe. So if you had the same scenario, crashed at frame 999 of 1,000, all you would need to do is go back and maybe render just frame 999 and frame 1,000. You don't have to render everything else. The target sequence or the TIFF sequence or whatever you're taking this out as can just be, it can be created, put back together in other packages. We can actually preview that through something that ships with Maya called FCheck, but to actually put that together and render it out, you would have to go through something like, maybe Premiere. After Effects can do this, a number of different packages and freeware packages out there as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just pause the video right now and let this do its render. Okay, so that finished. Didn't take too long. See down here, rendering completed. If we look in our folder, so this is where this is rendered to. It was in a project that I set in the basic default project settings within Maya. So animation rendering, it automates into images, and there we've got all our separate TGA images. Okay, 0001 to 0048. Let's just look at actually viewing these. If I just go down to my check, let's just put FCheck into this. Let's make sure this is the right version, 2014, and let's load our FCheck up. So this is just a little application here. Let's go to Open File, Open Animation. Let's just find our folder. So Maya projects, animation, images, and here we have this. Because I'm bringing an animation, I can just double click on the first one. Just going to go through and grab all of these. It's going to take a second. Taking a bit more than a second. Let's just pause this, bring it back when it's all done. So here we go. This is all loaded in there. And there we have our animation, our camera move. And all we need to do is just take this into another application, or take all these files into another application and render those out. Okay. Just as one final thing to this, what you can also do within the renders is start to add more realism. One of the things we get with this that we really notice when it's not there is motion blur. So let's just go into our render settings again. And again in Mental Ray this is quite simple to do. We just go down and it's one checkbox in our common panel. Where are we? Sorry, our quality panel. Go down here, and we have motion blur. So one setting, motion blur off. We have two settings within this, no deformation or full. No deformation would be, it wouldn't put motion blur on anything that had something like a bone structure inside it deforming the mesh. It would only work on translations. So we're usually best off with full. Just going to leave this a motion step of 1 right now. Okay, let's just see if you can see this in. Let's bring this down. Let's just do a quick render of this. You see we've actually got motion blur on the whole image now. Okay. What I'll do is I'll do a quick render of this. It will add to the render time, so just be aware. Obviously taking the motion steps up will increase the quality, but again increase the render time. Let's just have a look at this rendered out. So let's just go back into my, and actually if I want to save this out as it, no, I'll save it over the other files. Let's just go to a render, batch render. I don't know if it's going to come up and ask me if I want to save over these. There we go, it started on the first one and it's just copying straight over it. So again, I'll come back to this after it's rendered. Okay, after some considerable render time, here we have this done. So this is loaded into FJack again. It took about 15-20 minutes to render, but you can just see with the motion blur on there, it just looks a lot more realistic. It just adds so much to it. Okay, so it almost doubled the render time of the entire thing, but it can be worth it. So that's our little introduction to just very simple animation, creating motion paths, adding motion blur using the graph editor, and then just how you can output this file out of Maya. Okay, and that's the end of this tutorial.